All right, guys, thanks for calling in. Ivy League Umpires, we're going to get started here. Just to start off here, I think I'm going to hand this off to Alex. He's going to talk to you guys a bit about the fee structure going into the season and where we are with all the fees for the Ivy League.
Hey, guys. Hope all's well. I just want to let you know I'm still having trouble with Arbiter getting everything loaded. But the Ivy League fees for the season, what you guys see right now is the base fee of $203. And then you guys will get round-trip mileage, and you will also get, if we deem it necessary, which in most cases we will, you will get either 1 or 2 nights of hotel per diem, and that is at $140 a night per umpire. So if we think that you are close enough that you're not going to need the hotel per diem, you'll get mileage both days. If you do get the hotel per diem, you will not get mileage for the second day of the series. Our New York tolls are still included, and as you guys are updated with the travel fees and all the fees, I'll send out an email, and based on that, if anyone has any questions on what they're receiving, I'm certainly willing to answer all of those questions. But I did want to give you guys the information, and I'm really pretty happy with, and I think Chris is as well, with the way the Ivy League has stepped up going around trip mileage and being willing to pay for 2 nights of hotel in most instances where people are probably going to have to come in on a Friday evening, even if it's only a Saturday, Sunday series, because of, if you have an 11 o'clock start on a Saturday, you're not going to drive 4 hours before that. So a lot of series in the Ivy League are going to be somewhere around 1,000, a little bit more. So I think that's a pretty good step up for the Ivy League, and we're certainly happy to have that. So, Chris, anything else you wanted to say on fees there?
No, I couldn't agree more, guys. I mean, they've really made a commitment to us and to you guys, and I think that's a really good thing for us. Certainly they want to have a good staff, and they've made the point that if it means having guys travel a distance to get quality umpires, then that's what they'll do. So that's a really good thing for us, and I'm very happy about it as well. All right, guys, so to start here, when we started this whole process, we thought of many ways, and I thought of many ways to get more information out during the season, which I think has been lacking in the past. And I don't really know of too many conferences or associations around the country that are doing something like this. I could be wrong. But I just feel like when I was on the field, all too often we'll work games during the weekend, go home, and, work midweek. But there'd be information that maybe would only get out to a certain few umpires, or umpires were kind of responsible for getting information out to other guys, and it spread that way, and oftentimes it didn't get to everybody. So that's really why I decided that this platform of the conference calls for the staff umpires is very important. So it's something that, I think is a good thing we should get used to doing. And certainly there's a lot of information that we can cover. And, it's kind of an evolving process, too, as we get used to what sorts of information will come out throughout the season and what we need to talk about. Ideally, we have a season where there's no issues and there's not a whole lot to talk about. But, I think there's always going to be information coming from the NCAA. Certainly, I'm receiving emails and reports already, and we're only a couple of weeks in. Things haven't really taken off yet. So certainly I'll be sharing all information from the NCAA, any information that's communicated to me directly from the conferences, which is going to be pertinent and it's going to be helpful for you guys on the field. And any information you guys have in regards to, maybe any issues you guys may be having at one of the schools, whether it's a parking issue, locker rooms, site people at each institution. So, that can be a two-way street. Any concerns you have, certainly I can communicate that back to the conferences as well. Mechanic issues or changes in mechanics, things that our regional evaluators are seeing. And I've had probably 4 or 5 emails already from NCAA regional evaluators that it's really refreshing to see that the information is being shared throughout the games that they're going out to watch and evaluate. So in a little while, I'll touch on some of the things that they've observed within the first couple of weeks, but I think that's a really good thing that we're going to get more information from our evaluators there. Obviously, the in-season rule interpretation, the updates, and I have one in particular I'll talk about a little bit later. But I think that's also very good because, you know, as much as we get the emails and then get the videos that are released on the Arbiter and the Central Hub through the NCAA, I'm not sure that we all take enough time to watch them and really talk about them. So certainly any of those new interpretations that come out, this is a great platform to discuss those issues and if you have any questions. And I feel like it's just a great opportunity to have a steady flow of information throughout the season that we've never had before. So it's really the reason why we've decided to do this. And like I said, let's get used to it, and then I think it's going to be beneficial to all of us involved throughout the season. The way I'm looking at this right now is I'm looking to do staff phone calls every 2 weeks. Now, in thinking about the process, I think the direction we're going to go in is probably just have everybody call in. I think the reason for that is just because we have so many umpires that work in multiple conferences. So you may be a MAC umpire 1 week, NEC the next week. It could be Ivy League the week after, or America East. So I think the best way to probably do that is to have guys call in just in one specific conference call every 2 weeks. Now, certainly, if there's some major issues that we need to talk about as a conference or all conferences, we could do it every week, but I think every other week would be best. And on the off week, I'm looking to just send out emails to the staff, just updating anything that may happen on that off week. So it's kind of the mindset right now where I'm thinking, like I said, this is kind of an evolutionary process here. So if I feel the need to do this every week, and we may end up doing that, but at least at this point, it's looking like every 2 weeks. Now, crew chiefs, anyone who's assigned as a crew chief for the upcoming weekend, I will want to have a crew chief meeting every week. So that's just to go over and get everyone prepared and be on the same page for the weekends we're going into, and reporting any issues that may have happened the week before. So once again, just another opportunity for us all to get more information out there, to be better prepared for the weekends ahead. One thing I want to talk about also, guys, is the evaluation process. And I know we've talked about this. I touched on it a bit when we last spoke on the first conference call. Guys, crew chiefs, it's really important to me and to the process that you make sure that you file those crew chief reports on the Arbiter. You'll see the R on your Arbiter page there on the assignment. So make sure you take the time to do that. It's very important to get as much information we have and to make sure that I have all the information I need about the weekends, what happened. And I'm not looking for a huge detailed description or evaluation of each game and each umpire, but certainly, you know, anything that comes up positive for sure, more positives than negatives. Hopefully there's more positives out there. I just want to make sure that I get that information. And certainly anytime there's an issue, guys, this goes without saying, make sure you're getting a hold of me and calling me and communicating to me what's going on out there. Certainly with ejections, we've talked about that before, and you guys know the process that if you have an ejection, a phone call immediately after the game, and then make sure you get that report in by the next day. Guys, if you could do it that night, I really need it so I can make sure that we can start the process going before I have to speak with the conferences and coaches and such. But any information that you guys have in your weekends, I'm going to be on the road, but I'll always have my phone with me, and it's just important that I have as much info as I possibly can have if there is a problem. Okay, and I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Tournament selections. This is something I don't want to get into a huge detail or really get into detail talking about, but I just want you guys to know that we do have a process and that the coaches are going to be in on this process. I think it's important that they do have a say, but don't think that for you guys, a coach can basically blackball an umpire or that your tournament future is based purely on a coach's decision. They're going to be part of this. They've asked for that, and I think it's fair to have them in there. But it also, there's many other evaluations that will go into that process. The coordinator, myself, obviously, any observers that we hire, the crew chief like we spoke about. You know, and we have a good relationship with Bill McCallum, Jim Jackson, the regional evaluators as well, who are going to be able to give input and give reports on you guys. And they're out there. They've been out there already. And the coaches, they're going to have a say. So I just want you guys to be aware of the fact that they are in on that process now. And I think it's a good thing. And if we're all doing the right thing out there and working hard and acting responsibly and following the NCAA protocol, we'll be fine. Okay. One thing I do want to talk about, I spoke to Danny Miller earlier tonight, and Danny, I'm sure you're on the line here. Guys, if you have any videos or come up with any videos from your games on any specific plays, anything that we can use for training, then please email those videos to Danny. Get him that information. You know, unfortunately, we live in an area here where we don't have a lot of television, but there are computer feeds. There's the feeds that the schools have. And if you guys know you have a play on the field, you know, you may not specifically have your own video of that, but if you know something happens in your game, then let Danny know, and he can go through. And I know the Ivy League, they have some video feeds that we can link up to. But anything we can get to highlight positive things you guys are doing out there, highlight anything that we can use in training, good rotations, good things. I mean, Danny and in our organization, we've created a pretty good database of information and videos up to this point, but we can never have enough. So any videos you have, email them, Danny Miller at umpires.org. Danny, you on? Anything you want to add to that?
I am on. It's D. Miller at umpires.
What did I say, Danny Miller? Yeah, it is D. Miller. I'm sorry.
The only thing I would add is I'm not looking for anybody to send me directly the video. Simply an email stating the game, the inning, and essentially what transpired. You may or may not know whether there's video of the game or not. If you do, obviously that is helpful. But if you just send me the specific information, I can then take it from there and access any video that I can possibly do.
Perfect. Guys, I mentioned earlier about the NCAA regional evaluators, Bill McCallum, Jim Jackson. Jim may not be up in this area too much. He may bounce around a little bit. But, you know, it's pretty exciting to know that now we have more of a cooperation and a flow of information that's coming from those evaluators, and I'm seeing information from them. You know, they'll be around, and Bill may have the opportunity to come and speak with you guys. I think they've made a situation now it's a lot easier for them to actually communicate and talk to you guys. Maybe not give you specifics on things, but maybe not be hiding behind a tree or a car, and they'll be visible. And that's a good thing, because the more they see us work, the more they can obviously help us and push us in the right direction, and ultimately, you know, give us the opportunity to work in NCAA postseason. There's been some evaluation, some information that I've seen not only from our evaluators here in this part of the country, but I've seen evaluations from across the country. And, you know, there's some things here that they're seeing that, quite honestly, and I'm not saying it's guys that are working here, but, some things that just are not acceptable. One sentiment across the country now is that evaluators are seeing umpires out there that just aren't hustling. They're walking on the field that don't seem to want to be out there at times. Guys, that's just not acceptable. We can't have that. We need to be engaged. We need to work hard. We need to hustle. And we need to look like we want to be there even in between innings. Walking on the field just isn't acceptable. A lazy umpire, the perception of a lazy umpire. And guys, you're just inviting problems. If you give the impression that you don't even want to be there, everybody notices it. And if a coach notices that, that's just going to give him more of an opportunity to potentially cause issues in the process of the game. You're just inviting that. If you're not getting in position, you're not hustling, you're not working hard, then you know what? You deserve to have a coach call you out on that. And that's certainly a phone call that I don't want to receive, is to hear one of you guys just aren't working hard. And we have a very good staff here in this conference, and all four for that matter. So I'm sure this will not apply to us, but guys, work hard. Okay? One thing that the evaluators are seeing out there is that the coaches are wandering out of their coaches' boxes. Now, listen, I've umpired. I know it's difficult at times to be that guy, to just get on them about that. But, guys, it's a rule, okay? And certainly coaches that are hanging out too close to the foul line, coaches that are wandering outside the box, guys that are up too close to home plate, obviously for safety reasons. Guys, let's just clean that up. Small things like two guys on deck. Those are the things that these evaluators see. And for guys that want to make it to the next level, it's more than just the safes and outs, the balls and strikes. It's all those intangibles. It's all those little things that we don't think about that they look at and they watch. Okay, so just work hard and communicate effectively. And we're not saying yelling and screaming, coaches, but you know what? Do it the right way. Ask them nicely, and they'll respond hopefully in a favorable way. And that goes with talking with players and coaches too. I know there's a number of us, myself included, that have worked in conferences for many years. We've formed relationships with coaches that we've had for a very long time. And we get along with a lot of them, and maybe even some of them are friends of ours, okay? But we have to maintain that professional relationship out there, okay? And just be aware of the impression it gives off when you're out there talking to players and coaches on the field, okay? One more thing that an evaluator sees, I'm not saying you go out there and you're not friendly, you're not personable, but all the small talk and laughing and joking around, guys, let's just be professional and be aware of the impression that gives off, especially not only to those evaluators, but maybe that other coach who doesn't know you as well, what he may think, all right? Just some mechanics things. Starting positions in the C position, let's make sure, guys, we're not too deep, okay? Knowing that if we're set up way too deep, the problems that we may have for plays at third base, specifically on a steal play. I've seen a couple of evaluations from other parts of the country where those steals at third base, guys are just not getting a good look at that in a three-man, okay? And I know that's going to be a subject that's going to be covered on my NCAA coordinator meeting tomorrow. So be aware of that, starting position and then plays at third base on a steal. And one thing that we teach, I know a lot of you guys are doing a really good job of it, but runners on first and second or bases loaded as U1 being set up too deep and then not getting post-pitch steps. That's come up a number of times in evaluations I've seen. So, guys, make sure that we can be closer to that first baseman in the hip pocket, and you get good positive post-pitch steps once the pitch goes through the zone. Because certainly we want to be sitting there waiting for that back pick at first base and not racing the first baseman to get there, okay? But I've seen that a couple of times, and that's something also we're going to talk about tomorrow in that meeting, all right? So that's right there, guys. That's an example, really, of some of the things that we're going to be talking about on these conference calls. like I said earlier, it's great that I'm getting information from the NCAA and evaluators, and you guys certainly will benefit from the information that's being shared with me, and it'll trickle down to you guys. One thing I want to talk about, and it came up earlier this season already, and I'm going to be the first one to admit, non-conference games, when I was working those games, I never, ever brought up the halted game rule before a game. Just didn't even think about it. Obviously, weekends, we have those rules in place, conference rules for halted games, whether you pick them up, whether you don't, whether it's official. But midweek, that's something that's very rarely ever brought up at the plate meeting. So, guys, I'm asking you to bring up that every single midweek game. Ask them if they're playing the halted game rule. Because we had a situation this year already where there was some confusion. And you know what? At the end of the day, the teams were not going to go back on the field after a weather delay. It was too dark. But it's a pretty uncomfortable situation when one team's leaving thinking they have a tie game and the other team thinks they have a win. So it's just something to be aware of, guys. It takes 2 seconds to just bring that up at the home plate meeting. And we just had a rule interpretation that just came out here that we're going to be talking about tomorrow, and I can directly speak to this one because it happened to me last year in postseason. Guys, take some time, review Rule 9.1a and 9.1b in your rule book in regards to a pausing in a wind-up delivery, okay? With the way the rules have been real specific on starting positions facing generally towards home plate, I can certainly tell you that teams are trying to find a way to circumvent that rule and basically trick people, okay? And I've seen it. And a couple of ways they are doing it is by hesitating or stopping in their motion. Just remember, in the windup, you can pause during your delivery, all right? But in the set position, this is what I saw last year in postseason, you have to make sure that your natural motion associated with the pitch is committing you to pitch without any alteration or interruption. Okay, so that's real important to just think about that. So any sort of hesitation or any sort of simulation of going to the windup or anything, any kind of pause associated with that, that's illegal, okay, whether the runners are on or not. So just something to be aware of, that teams are trying to make sure that they find a way to kind of circumvent that rule. Okay. And that's really all I have for tonight. If you guys have any brief questions while we're on here, go ahead. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you being on. And like I said, this is something that we're going to be doing throughout the season. I'm really excited about, and I think that, Who's there?
Chris,
Nothing?
I actually have something.
Yes, sir.
It's this is DeBrouwer.
Yeah.
I would love to see a little bit of consistency between what the NCAA is telling us about plays the plate and what it says in the rule book. I think those two things are, if not inconsistent, maybe even mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And it's hard to figure when the rule book tells us that it's, the act of fielding is a judgment call, and then certain plays are put out as this should be called this way. I think that creates a dangerous expectation.
Yep.
And I don't want to see any of our umpires put in a spot where they call something because they judge a catcher not to be in the act of fielding, but in the act of blocking, and the NCAA comes back and says, "Oh, this should be called blocking, or should be legal."
Right.
So
I can tell you this: this has already come up in our first coordinator meeting, and I think there's a very good chance that we're going to be going back, revisiting this rule for next season, and hopefully clearing it up a little bit. At least the discussion has started, and I think that at least one coordinator has pretty much voiced that he'd like to see us go back to the way things were before. So
right.
I think everybody is kind of acknowledging here that there's a problem and some discrepancies in the rule book, and it needs to be, if not fixed, cleared up a little bit.
It's hard to know based on what it says in the rule book what the expectation is for us, and that's a tough spot to be in as an umpire. You don't want to step out on a field and think, I don't know what I'm supposed to call here.
Yeah, I know. And
go ahead.
If we remember what happened last year too. I mean, we were a week or two into the season, and they changed the interpretation right off the bat with that last 60 feet.
Yeah.
And then posted the video. So, I obviously, maybe I'll have some more information on that tomorrow. I'm guessing there will hopefully be more videos to come throughout the season on those plays. They usually seem to pop up. But certainly I acknowledge that is a difficult position for us to be in trying to interpret that play. And I guess, the easiest way and the best way just to interpret it is just to use that last 60 feet. And I guess, once that ball is in flight, the last 60, knowing what the catcher now can do based on the rule we have now and the interpretation that he can be blocking the plate.
Sure.
Which is not consistent with the other bases. And that was the one point that was brought up by one of the other coordinators. That's not consistent with what you can and cannot do at other bases.
Yeah.
So, not the best answer for now, but that's the way we have to umpire it, and hopefully next season we'll have some clarity as far as it comes to that rule. And anything that I get throughout the season certainly will be passed along to you guys once I get it. Anything else, guys?
Hey, Chris, if I might, this is Dan, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to let everybody know, from this past weekend, I received 3 or 4 plays already in my inbox that in the next day or so, we're supposed to get a lot of weather here tomorrow, so I may have time tomorrow. I'm going to start editing these together. One of the great things that we have are, I always refer to these guys as just being brilliant mechanic minds. So the process that we are going to, pretty much enact the whole year is, once I get these videos that are sent to me, I will forward them to, Brian just spoke, Alex. There are so many guys that have just brilliant mechanic minds. So they will write it, and then I will voice it over, or whoever's available will voice it over. And then what we will do is, I believe I'm correct, we will email these to you guys. I will post them on Facebook, and we will also post them on the unitedumpires.org site. And I think it's really important in terms of being able to access this type of video. One of the problems I have had with the NCAA videos that they send, and I have communicated this to them, so I'm not speaking out of turn here, is just the process that we have to go through in order to consume the video. You log into Arbiter, you then have to get to the video section. It's just tough, especially a lot of us consume our digital media with our cell phones. So we just want to make this as easy as possible, where you guys can see the plays, whether they're 3 or 4 from a week, and then, essentially have this as many times throughout the course of the season as possible. So in advance, I would just appreciate, or I do appreciate, any of your help in making me aware of the videos that we can then put out there, so we can all learn and benefit from them.
You know, and I just had a thought on that too, Danny. I mean, any videos that are up, certainly, you know, if we all have access to seeing them, which you've said to us they're going to be on many different platforms, certainly if you guys have any questions, we can even discuss some of that stuff on these calls. I mean, if we have a light night or light conference call week where there's not a lot to talk about, guys, we can review some of these things. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of things we can cover on these calls. Certainly I'm not looking to keep you guys on the phone all night long, but, you know, these are opportunities where if you have a question about a rule or a play or a video or something, you know, this is the platform to do it. So just bear that in mind. Like I said before, this is going to be kind of evolving over time, and you know, we can use these conference calls for many different things to cover. But any video we have and using and utilizing that video is going to be great and going to help us all out. So, all right, guys. Want to thank you guys for taking the time tonight. Any of you guys that were going to call into the NEC or any of the other conference calls tomorrow, there's no need to call back in. It's basically going to be the same information. I mean, unless you want to hear my beautiful voice again, which I wouldn't put you guys through it again. Certainly, you know, you guys do not have to call in for the second or third or fourth conference you may be working in. But once again, guys, thanks for calling in. And I know we're all getting ready. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit better for us. But I know I'm excited about the season. And, you know, let's go get them, guys. Best of luck to you all.